ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 15, Text number 22. Vāpīšu vidrumatatāsvamalamrtāpsu प्रेष्यान्विता निजवने तुलसीभिरीशम् अभ्यर्च्यति स्वलकमुन्नसमीक्ष्य वक्त्रम् उच्छेषितं भगवतेत्यमताङ्गयच्छ्रीः। Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The goddesses of fortune worship the Lord in their own gardens by offering tulasi leaves on the coral-paved banks of transcendental reservoirs of water. While offering worship to the Lord, they can see on the water the reflection of their beautiful faces with raised noses, and it appears that they have become more beautiful because of the Lord's kissing their faces. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Generally, when a woman is kissed by her husband, her face becomes more beautiful. In Vaikuntha also, although the goddess of fortune is naturally as beautiful as can be imagined, she nevertheless awaits the kissing of the Lord to make her face more beautiful. The beautiful face of the goddess of fortune appears in ponds of transcendental crystal water when she worships the Lord with tulasi leaves in her garden. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. So we are seeing Lord Brahma describing to the Devatas. Here he has used the word Anga, O dear Devatas. And he is describing the spiritual world, Vaikuntha. This chapter is called Description of the Kingdom of God. And gradually we are seeing that more and more aspects of the spiritual world being revealed. And in this verse, Lord Brahma is saying, Vāpīšu vidruma tatāsvamalamrtāpsu. Vapi means pond. There are ponds there in the spiritual world. And vidruma tata. Tata means the bank. Vidruma tata, the banks are made of corals. Very precious corals. And in that vapi, in that pond, there is Amala Amrita Apsu. Amala, very, very clear. Amrita, very special, sweet. Apsu, water. So there are these beautiful ponds with coral paved banks, Prabhupada has said, coral paved banks of transcendental reservoirs of water, Amrita Apsu, Amala Amrita Apsu, very clear waters. Preshyanvitha, and there Lakshmi, she is surrounded by her maidservants. Preshya Anvitha. She has got many, she's not alone, and she has got many attendants, and they are all around her. Preshyanvitha. Nijavane. And in her own garden. So there is a personal garden of Lakshmi. There, Nijavane, Tulasi Bhir, Isham Abhyarchati. And there with Tulasi, she is worshipping the Lord. So Tulasi Bhir, Isham, Isha, the Lord, Abhyarchati. Swalakam unnasam ikshyavakram. And there she is seeing Swalakam Unnasam, her own beautiful face, which is Swalakam, which is marked by tilak and has beautiful locks and has a raised nose. Unnasam Ikshya Vaktram, her face Vaktram, Ikshya, she is looking. Uchcheshitam Bhagavati, Bhagavata Uchcheshitam, and her face which has been kissed by the Lord. Amathanga Yat Shrihi, that Lakshmi, this is what is happening, and she is seeing her own beautiful face, which is already beautiful, but has become even more beautiful because of the kiss of the Lord. And in that beautiful water pond, clear water ponds, which are paved with coral banks, there she is seeing her own beautiful face. And this is what is being described by Lord Brahma. Now these kind of descriptions will unsettle the impersonalists a lot. So the impersonalist who thinks that the ultimate truth is impersonal, has no form, has no features, nirvishesha, nirakara, and has no activities, has no emotions. Here, this is a description of all kinds of very profound emotions, very beautiful, very picturesque descriptions. Impersonalists think that their understanding of the absolute truth is by negation of what they have seen and experienced in this world. That is how they arrive at the conception, at the concept of an absolute realm or an absolute truth. By denying what they have experienced in this relative world. But the Vaishnava Acharyas argue that if you define something as a denial of the relative, that description, that definition is still dependent on the description of the relative, because it is denial of the relative, and hence it is still not the absolute. So absolute means it should be completely absolute of any reference, any dependence. But their understanding, they want to define their absolute by denying the relative. It is still appearing, it is still originating from their understanding of the relative. So here they see form, so they say it should be formless. Here they see beauty, so they say it should be not have all of these kind of variegatedness, and these varieties should not be there. Here there are emotions, it should be free from emotions, free from form. Here there are activities, it should be free from activities. So like this, their conception of the absolute is by denying of the relative. So that's not considered to be a very advanced understanding. On the other hand, Srimad Bhagavatam presents what is the nature of that absolute. And the description of the absolute that is described in the Bhagavatam is so stunning, so picturesque, so attractive. All of the things, as we are seeing here, beauty, emotions, activities, forms, all of that exists in this spiritual world. And in today's verse, Lord Brahma further discloses something even more. And he says that there is Vishnu and there are Lakshmis and there is great attraction between them. And so much so, Lord Vishnu kisses Lakshmi. And that makes her very happy, and she becomes very engladdened, and she becomes even more beautiful when this happens. So, how do we understand all these things? That there is beautiful forms, activities, and kissing, which we normally think is all about this world. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu presents a very beautiful reference, a framework to understand all of these. Otherwise, it's actually very bewildering. If we don't understand, if we don't have the framework that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu presents to understand all of this, it will be very bewildering. That framework Chaitanya Mahaprabhu offers is the framework of rasas. And they are all bhakti rasas. So the spiritual world, the Lord is there. The Lord is surrounded by very loving devotees. And these devotees relate with the Lord in different rasas of relationships. And hence there is also the rasa of Madhurya rasa, which is the conjugal relation between the lover and the beloved. And hence all of these relationships exist, and these relationships are all transcendental bhakti rasas, and has nothing to do with the mundane rasas that we see in this material world. Srila Prabhupada writes very nicely about these rasas in the very first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam in a short paragraph. Very profound. I'll read this paragraph. Prabhupada is quoting here. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu talked about all of these rasas, and this was further explained by the 6 Goswamis in their literature. And further it was expanded by another great Acharya, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. These are all very great Acharyas who had full realization of the understanding of the absolute truth. Without this understanding, people think that these are just fantasies or mythology, or meant for people who are not very spiritually advanced, for them to focus on something. They come up with all of these kind of understanding, but the true understanding these acharyas have revealed. So Prabhupada writes, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura specifically deals with the original and pure sex psychology called Adi Rasa, the original rasa, devoid of all mundane inebrities. So this Adi Rasa, the pure sex psychology, is free from all mundane inebrities. In the material world, when you think of sex, all of these things, it is connected with very unpleasant, very abominable aspects which transcendentalists, spiritualists try to avoid. And we see here who is describing all this? Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma's description is being narrated by whom? By Shukadev Goswami. Very, very elevated transcendentalist. Was a Naishtika Brahmachari. A Brahmachari never discusses anything to do with mundane sex. And if he is discussing this, then it must not be mundane sex, it must be something else that we are not able to figure out. That is the logic Srila Prabhupada presents, that this is nothing to do with mundane inebrities. The whole material creation is moving under the principle of sex life. We cannot deny that. Sex life is very prominent in this creation, in God's creation. The whole material creation is moving under the principle of sex life. In modern civilization, sex life is the focal point for all activities. Wherever one turns his face, he sees sex life predominant. Therefore, sex life is not unreal. It's a very heavy conclusion. So sex life is very prominent in this creation. And everything is coming from the Lord. So even this sex life, which is prominent in the material world, is originally coming from the Lord. But in the Lord, everything is pure, pavitram. He is param brahma, parandhama, pavitram paramam bhavan. He is untouched by any material contamination. So everything is pure. It's of another dimension there. So therefore, sex life is not unreal. Its reality is experienced in the spiritual world. The material sex life is but a perverted reflection of the original fact. The original fact is in the absolute truth, and thus the absolute truth cannot be impersonal. It is not possible to be impersonal and contain pure sex life. Consequently, the impersonalist philosophers have given indirect impetus to the abominable mundane sex life because they have overstressed the impersonality of the ultimate truth. Consequently, man without information of the actual spiritual form of sex has accepted perverted material sex life as the all-in-all. There is the distinction between sex life in the diseased material condition and spiritual sex life. So here, Srila Prabhupada is pointing out that in the spiritual world, Krishna is a person and he is the supreme Purusha, and there is Prakriti, there are his devotees, and his devotees have different relationships, including a conjugal relationship between a man and a woman, like a man and a woman relation. But all of those gopis or the Lakshmis in the Vaikuntha are his own expansions of his pleasure potency. And hence that relationship is on a transcendental plane. He is completely spiritual. He has got many potencies, and one of the potencies is the pleasure potency, and that pleasure potency personified is Lakshmi or Radharani or the gopis. The gopis are expansions of Radharani, and the other associates in the Vaikuntha are all expansions of Lakshmi Devi. And so they are his own pleasure potency expanded. And when they relate with him, and they are all personalities, and they relate with him in a conjugal relationship, in the relationship of a lover and the beloved, of a young girl loving a young boy. But those young girls, the gopis or the Lakshmis, are all pleasure potency manifestation of the Lord himself. And the Lord is Atma Rama. He is not dependent on anyone. Now you may say, is he dependent on the pleasure given by the gopis and the Lakshmis? No, they are his own expansions after all. They are not different from him in that sense. So he is not dependent on anything, anyone. So he is still Atma Rama and independent. And that relationship that exists in the spiritual world is pure Adi Rasa, is the pure sex psychology, that relationship that exists. But in the material world, because there are conditioned souls who are envious of the Lord and who want to imitate the Lord, Krishna has created facsimiles of the same forms that exist in the spiritual world. And here we get an opportunity to experience male forms, female forms, and pursue our karma to enjoy and associate with opposite sexes. And this is what is happening in the material world. But in the spiritual world, it is free from all of these kind of karma. It is all on the platform of prema. And this is happening so because the entire spiritual world is on another dimension, a transcendental dimension, different from the material dimension that we know. And this Krishna repeatedly explains in the Bhagavad Gita. Unless we understand these aspects, that there is a transcendental nature, there is a transcendental dimension, and in that dimension Krishna exists, and nothing to do with the material dimension, we will mistake all of these kind of statements that Krishna, Narayana is kissing the Lakshmis. What is going on there? Is it like the material sex that happens between an ordinary man and woman in this material world? No, it has got nothing to do with that. It is free from such contaminations because it's happening on a transcendental dimension. Now, Krishna is very careful about this. The moment Krishna talks about his appearance in this material world in the 4th chapter, because Krishna began by saying that I spoke about this knowledge, what I am telling you, Arjuna, long ago to Vivaswan. And Vivaswan spoke to Manu, Manu to Ikshvaku. And so in this way the kings were understanding. But in due course of time, this knowledge was lost. And now I'll explain the same knowledge to you. When he says this, Arjuna's immediate response is, Krishna, you and I are friends and are about the same age. Vivaswan is much, much senior to us. How is it possible that you could speak to Vivaswan? This was the question that Arjuna raises. And immediately Krishna takes on the position and he says, no, many, many lives I have had, you have had, but I remember all of them and you don't remember. Because my position is different. And what is his position? And that Krishna says, Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritim swam adhisthaya sambhavami atma mayaya. My position is aja. Ajopi san avyayatma. My position is not like the material bodies that we see here. The material bodies we see here are vyaya. They are always deteriorating. Our bodies are always aging and deteriorating. Organs are failing and the skin is becoming wrinkled. We are aging. Krishna's body never ages because his body is avyaya, unchanging. Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san. I am also the supreme controller of all living entities. Bhutanam ishvaropi san. This is my position. Staying in my position, prakritim swam adhisthaya. Swam prakritim, my own prakriti, my own nature, adhisthaya. Being fixed in my own position, in my own nature. Prakritim swam adhisthaya. Sambhavami, I appear in this world. Atma mayaya, by my own internal potency. There can't be any more clear definition than this. People cannot mistake that Krishna is an ordinary man. Very often we come across these kind of things in material world. We come across people. If you say, they will have some small child in their home and they will say, this is my Krishna. You see, of course they have some sentiment, affection and all that. But it's okay, you may say that, you may pardon them in one sense, that out of their affection they say, this is my Krishna. But from a more rigorous philosophical, technical point of view, it's not right to compare an ordinary child of this material world passing urine and stool to Krishna. Krishna's body is transcendental. It is Chinmaya Rupa. And it is of another, Prakritim Swam Adhishtaya. So Krishna begins to clarify his position, his nature, his personality, his form. It is transcendental. Never mistake that to be a product of material nature. And Krishna repeats this. There is one expression Krishna uses very nice. Param bhavam ajananto. People in this material world, they don't know my true nature, my higher nature. Krishna uses this expression, param bhavam ajananto, in 2 verses. 1, in the 7th chapter. Avyaktam vyaktimapannam manyante mam abhuddhayaha. Param bhavam ajananto mamavyayam anuttamam. Mama avyayam. I am imperishable, inexhaustible, and anuttamam. I am spiritual, I am finest. Param bhavam ajananto. They don't know my true nature. Whom? Who don't know? Manyante ma abhuddhayaha. Less intelligent people. Less intelligent people don't know my true nature. And they say, avyaktam vyaktimapannam. This is another big blow to the impersonalist understanding. There is one avyakta truth, and from that avyakta truth, Krishna has come. Avyaktam vyaktimapannam. Apannam means has taken form. This vyakti has taken form from that avyakta. Manyante mama buddhaya. They think about me. Foolish people think about me like this. Parambhavam ajananto. They don't know my higher nature. Mamavyayam anuttamam. So Krishna is saying, my nature is of a transcendental nature. And in the next verse, in the 9th chapter again, avajananti mam mudha manushim tanumashritam parambhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Mama bhuta maheshwaram. Bhuta means all existence, all created existence. Maheshwaram, I am the controller. And when I appear in this human-like form, manushim tanumashritam, they immediately mistake me, thinking that I have taken a human form. I'm actually having a human-like form, but actually my nature is transcendental, and they are foolish to think that I am just another human being. Avajananti mam mudha. And Krishna is using very strong words. Who think that I am an ordinary man. He is a mudha. Mudha means a very strong word. Right? We know in our Indian languages, we say, if somebody says you are a mudha, the person will get very offended. Krishna is using such strong words. Avajananti mam mudha. Mudhas avajananti, mam avajananti. They don't know me. Manushim tanumashritam. They think that I have accepted a human-like form now. I have appeared like this. I have become a human being. Param bhavam ajananto. They don't know my true nature. Mama bhuta maheshwaram. So, Krishna's personality, Krishna is a person. He is a transcendental person. He has a transcendental form. He comes from a transcendental world. And in the transcendental world there is personality, and he can't be alone. Personality means he is surrounded by many other personalities. Here, Preshyanvitha, he is surrounded by loving, devoted servants. Preshya Anvitha, he is never alone. The Lord is never alone. The king is never alone. He is always along with his entourage. In the same way, Krishna is never alone. He is surrounded. Preshtalibi sevyamano smarami. He is surrounded by beautiful, loving, serving devotees. Next, again in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna again talks about his personality. Nahite bhagavan vyaktim vidur deva na dhanavaha. My personality, vyaktim, vidur, nahite bhagavan vyaktim, my personal nature, viduhu, deva, danavaha, na viduhu. Neither the demigods nor the demons can really understand my true nature. Then, in the 11th chapter, Bhaktyatva ananya shaktya ahameva vidhorjuna gnatum drashtam cha tatvena praveshtum cha parantapa. Here Krishna has said, only by bhakti, bhaktyatva ananya shakya. How shakya? How it becomes possible to understand? Bhaktya ananya bhakti, only by undivided devotion, unalloyed devotion. Gnatum, you can understand me. Drashtum, you can see me. Chatatvena, truly you will understand me, truly you will see me. Praveshtum, and you will enter into the mysteries of my understanding, or you will enter into my spiritual abode only by bhaktyatva ananya shakya, only by unalloyed devotion. So very, very explicitly Krishna has stated that this is his position, but still people don't understand, and they think that Krishna, ultimate truth, is impersonal, and all of these kind of descriptions of Vaikuntha, these are all just mythological, and it is meant for neophytes because they need to concentrate on something and they need a form, so to enable the neophytes to concentrate on something, these kind of descriptions are there. This is a very dangerous philosophy. Never, no acharyas have actually explained it in this way. And why does this kind of a misunderstanding come about? Prabhupada explains, there is one beautiful statement by Srila Prabhupada. Very often we hear, I'll just take a few minutes. Very often we hear this statement of Srila Prabhupada, the spiritual master must be a representative of Krishna. Right? There is one more thing. Once in one lecture in 1966 in New York, Srila Prabhupada said, just like the spiritual master must be a representative of Krishna, the disciple must be a representative of Arjuna. Usually we talk about the responsibility of the spiritual master. He should represent Krishna. Now what is the responsibility of us, the disciples? We should represent Arjuna. And what does that mean? We should represent Arjuna. The way Arjuna accepted Krishna's statements, we should accept. And what is that? Arjuna says in the 10th chapter, Sarvametha dhrutam manye yanmam vadasi Keshava. Krishna, every word, everything that you are telling me, I accept that as truth. We should be prepared to accept that as the truth. Now, Krishna has said, Idam tute guhyatamam pravakshyami anasuyave, in the 9th chapter. Now I will tell you this very confidential truth because you are not envious of me. Right? You are not envious of me. Now, this is the important qualification, that we are not envious of Krishna to understand this confidential truth. What does this mean, envious of Krishna? Prabhupada has given a few explanations. One of the explanations that Prabhupada gives is unwilling to accept the statements of Krishna as it is. And why are we unwilling to accept the statements of Krishna as it is? We are envious of him. This is Krishna's position. Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan. Param Bhavam Ajananto. His nature is Param Bhavam. He is a Vyaktim. Bhagavan Vyaktim. Not easy to understand. Only by Ananya Bhaktyatva Ananya Shakya. Only by Ananya Bhakti we can understand Krishna. Gnatum, Drashtam, Chatatvena, Praveshtum, Chaparantapa. Very clearly Krishna has said, this is the only way to understand. But we are unwilling to accept Krishna's position. Why? This is because of envy. And Prabhupada quoted the story of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the story that he narrated. The story goes like this. There were two young people. They grew up together. And both of them became lawyers. And after becoming lawyers, somehow they got separated. They were very close friends. So one person came to one of the friends, and said, you know that friend of yours? He has become a judge in the High Court. So he was actually, when he heard that he has become a judge, he was naturally envious and jealous of that person. Like friends, it happens. So he said, you mean that friend of mine, he has become a judge in that another city, another place? He said, yes. Hey, no, it's not possible. I have seen him, so he's running around without dress in our village. How can he become a judge? No, he has become a judge. I have seen him sitting on the bench. He was dressed like a judge and he was sitting as a judge. So this man still not able to reconcile that his friend, whom he knows so well, has now become a judge and he's very envious of him. He said, no, I don't think so. I saw him sitting on the bench. Maybe you have seen, but maybe he's sitting, but I don't think he's getting the salary of a judge. So he is constantly in a denial mode. Why? He is jealous of him. He says, no, it can't be. I know him very well. He can't be a judge. Even if he is a judge, I don't think he's getting the salary of a judge. You see, constantly denying. This is coming out of jealousy. In the same way, we are unwilling to accept the position of Krishna, unwilling to accept the statements of Krishna as it is. And hence we will get confused. Who is this Krishna? What is this Krishna? If we take the words of Krishna as it is given in the Bhagavad Gita, as this is followed with tremendous rigor in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta. Among the Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas, every word is taken extremely seriously because they are Lord's words. They are not ordinary person's words. Bhagavan Uvacha, Krishna's words, cannot be taken lightly. And this rigor is there in our sampradaya, and very, very meticulously our acharyas have analyzed. This is the position of Krishna. And hence, everything about Krishna, everything about Krishna's world, every relationship, every activity that happens in the spiritual world is of another dimension. So if Krishna is enjoying with the gopis, Narayana is enjoying with Lakshmis, it is of another dimension that we simply cannot imagine with our mundane mind. This is something that when we are purified, this is something that is revealed in our hearts by the mercy of Guru and Krishna. This is the position, this is the right way to understand Vedic literatures. There are very few people in the whole world who understand these things properly. Only when we come in touch with a pure devotee who is very, very rare, we will get understanding of all these things. So this was the understanding given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and it was passed down in Parampara, and Srila Prabhupada repeatedly clarifying these things and telling us what is the truth about this spiritual world. We are very fortunate. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.